49ers Web Zone No Huddle podcast, now partnered with Odyssey. I'm Al Sacco. He's Zain Nakvi. No Brian Reddick today. Just me and Zain. Zain, like the old days, buddy. It's just me and you.
Just like old times, Al. But it's not like old times for the Niners because things are looking up.
Things are looking up. And now that you mention it, kind of wanted to see, okay, we're at a quarter-ish into the season, right? Now with 17 games, it's not quite a quarter, but so many things have happened. Obviously, Trey Lance gets hurt, and my expectations for this team have changed a little bit. Where are you on where you were with the expectations and where you are now?
So the Denver game was kind of a harsh sort of wake up call for me because I was like, this version of the 49ers and specifically like, Jimmy Garoppolo is not going to win a lot of games just because they were totally discombobulated on offense, couldn't really get anything going. But then they turned in that performance against LA, this week, and it was our offense was marginally better. Like they weren't like dominant, but like you had those plays by Debo and he kind of carried the team a little bit. But to me, like now it was about Trey's development to me before the season. I had said before the season that I didn't think that they would make the playoffs because I thought they would just miss out because they would sacrifice those wins for Trey's development. So now, and this has no, and this is not indicative of who I want starting one over the other. This is more so just who is ready now. And with Jimmy, it seems like they can kind of like hit the ground running, and what they've been doing the last 5 years, they just kind of keep doing it, right? We know what that is, right? It's not necessarily enough to get you over the hump of winning a Super Bowl. I feel like you need more to fall in place for you, but I think it's enough to get you to the playoffs. And now the Niners are atop the division. They are in sole possession of first place with two really winnable games on the road in the East Coast. They're going to stay on the East Coast, much like they did in the last couple of seasons between these two games. And they've got Carolina next, and Carolina is a total mess right now with Baker Mayfield, who's been terrible this year. Carolina's bottom third of the league in both offense and defense, specifically in rushing defense. They're number 24, number 25. So I think that if you can string a couple of wins together here before you hit that stretch of Kansas City and then LA, and then you have Tampa Bay later on in the season, if you can just stack some wins before that, I think that they'll be okay. So really, Alec, they're pretty much a game off of what I thought they would be. I thought they would be maybe 3-1 or 2-2 by this point, and they are 2-2. But that one game you could argue is like Denver or Chicago. So they're kind of in line with what I thought they would be when Trey went down. Because to me, it's been two discussions, right? It's like, okay, what would we think that they would have been with Trey, and what are they now? And that's two completely different things to me.
Yeah, and I thought too with Trey. So this is going to be a year where I still had playoffs as an expectation, but like you said, a lot of it was about the development with Trey because I didn't know what they were going to get from him. It was hard for me to really say like this is a Super Bowl contending team, whatever the situation may be. Now with him hurt, I almost feel like it's more of a run it back season again, right? You see how good defense I knew was going to be good. I didn't know it was going to be this good. This defense is looking special. Absolutely special. Offense, I thought would have bumps in the road, which they're doing anyway. But at least we know with this offense, we know what we've seen before. We know that if Jimmy can at least take care of the ball, they're going to win a lot of games. And I had them at 11-6. I wonder where I have them now. Should we go through this? Do you want to go through and see maybe where we have them really, really quick?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we got them. They're 2-2 obviously right now.
Mm-hmm.
At Carolina this week, you don't want to get too much in the preview, but I think that's a win for sure.
Yeah, I got the winning against Carolina as well.
You're there too. All right. Yeah. Falcons, I think a win.
Yep, likewise.
All right. Kansas City, I don't think they're going to win that game.
They don't have enough offense right now. Like if they can pull out, both if Kyle and Jimmy can pull out like a Saints game of circa 2019. They'll have a better chance, but they just don't have enough offense right now to compete with them.
So when I look at the Rams, I always think they're going to split. That's kind of always the way I look at things. But after seeing the way the last 3 years have gone and what happened in this first game, I think they kind of own the Rams. Mm-hmm. So I got them at 5-3, I think, going into the bye.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Yeah.
All right. So here's where it gets dicey, and here's where I think people really thought they were going to have a tough schedule at the end. And I don't know that they do anymore. I think I saw somewhere they have the third or fourth easiest schedule now, strength of schedule or something like that. Right. And it doesn't look as daunting as it did. You come out of the bye with the Chargers, who have a lot of injuries. It doesn't look like Bosa's going to be playing in that game and everything else. And again, I think that's a home game off a bye. I'm going to keep going back to this defense. I think the Niners can win that.
That's the Anthony Lynn revenge game, right?
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, again, with Herbert, he's always going to give them a chance no matter what when you have an elite quarterback like that. But the health on that team is just they've consistently year in year out been terrible. So, and I don't really believe in the coaching that much of that team. So, I can see the Niners win that game. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Arizona. I just don't think they're going to go undefeated in the division. I think they're going to get a loss somewhere. I don't, but I always do the splits. So are they at Arizona or home to Arizona that week?
They are home to Arizona, and then
is there a game in Mexico this year with Arizona?
Week 18. That's the last game now.
Is that the one? That's the last game. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So this is. Oh, I'll say this is another win. I'm going to give this one another win.
Yeah. This is a Monday night game here. I'm going to say that they won that one. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, is this right? They have how many straight home games? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight home games.
5. You know what? Actually,
It's got to be the Mexico game, right?
That's got to be the Mexico game. Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'll also give them a win.
Looking at the schedule, the schedule on January 8th says TBD. So for time, so it may be a flex game, or I'm not sure.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, it does look kind of confusing. All right, so the next game is New Orleans, and again, I don't trust that quarter. I think the Niners can win that game.
I don't believe in that. Yeah, I don't believe in them. Yeah.
All right, Mike McDaniel Bowl, 12-4.
That is the.
I think with Miami, like they've kind of pulled 2 wins out of their ass. I kind of don't know what they are yet.
Yeah. And like Tua, like we don't know what his health is, right? Like the guys, the poor guy, like they're systemically like killing the guy, like in Miami. I don't know what they're doing over there. So
they're really trying to, yeah.
I want to just take an aside for a second and talk about the whole Tua thing, because this is a big deal right now in the NFL. And he had a concussion the week prior, the game prior, 4 days prior to playing on the Thursday night. He should have been taken out of that game against the Bills. And he was wobbling around, and it's clear that he had a concussion. And the independent physician who examined him has subsequently been fired. So they acknowledge that they messed up. And then they put him out there on a Thursday night game on short rest. And he absolutely that was one of the scariest concussions I've ever seen, in the sport. Just awful, awful stuff. And
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Al.
I was going to say, that's one of the things where sometimes you think people don't have a voice, but what happened, the outcry from that game, I think made people start to think differently about this and sort of maybe force some hands, because the outcry was everywhere. When you see him on the ground with his, his fingers contorted and everything, it was frightening. I see any human being go through that. And, fans were pissed, players were pissed, ex-players were pissed. There was people spoke out, and hopefully that's going to cause for some change. So it was good to see. So, don't think you don't have a voice, you do. And I thought that was a good thing to come out of a bad situation, in the sense that people really pushed the envelope and said enough is enough with this. And I think I think that the doctor got fired, and I think the NFL is going to look at things differently because of the public outcry.
Yeah. And I think that it's just, you can't, player safety and all this stuff, Thursday night football, it's nice to have Thursday night football because it's you have it during the week, but I just think that if you really cared about player safety, Thursday night football would not exist. And
yeah, agree.
It's not enough time for guys to get ready. It's not the quality of the games isn't always good. And then you have something like this. So who knows if Tua is going to be playing that game, but Mike McDaniel, it's the one game where it's just on the schedule arms, literally, I don't know what's going to happen, because he knows Kyle so well. He's been with Kyle at every single stop in his career up until now, until this year. So, gosh, it's a toss up. I'm going to say the Niners maybe win by slim margin because it's at home.
I think so too, for the same reason. Next game is Tampa Bay. The way I would see this game going is a defensive battle, and Tampa Bay forces Jimmy into mistakes.
Yeah.
I think that Tampa Bay defense might be a bad matchup for the Niners. I would give them a loss here.
Yeah, and that's Tom Brady's last time playing in the Bay Area. We thought the last time was last time, right? This is actually going to be the last time playing in the Bay Area. So I think that he's going to be home, and that's how he is with motivation, right? And I don't expect them to beat Tampa Bay. I don't expect them to, right? That's the greatest quarterback of all time. So
yeah, agree there. At Seattle is the next game. I don't care. Seattle's garbage. 10-4.
They're trash. Yeah. Yep.
I don't care what they're doing right now.
Yeah.
Washington, I think the defensive line will absolutely eat against Carson Wentz. I think that's an easy win on Christmas Eve.
Likewise. Yep.
Raiders, that'll be a fun one. I think Josh McDaniels is a huge fraud, and I think the Niners will win that game as well.
Yep.
And then I think just because I don't think you're going to sweep the division, I'm going to give them a loss to Arizona at the end of the season.
Because they're going to be sitting the starters because they would have already locked up the division and a playoff spot, and then they sit the starters, and then we don't care about that game, and then they just lose. So I'm cool with that.
With 12 wins, probably. If they have 12 wins at that point, like we have it, I don't think the Rams are getting to 12. I don't think the Cardinals are getting to 12. So
mind you, the Rams and Cardinals and all these things, they've been, I mean, relatively healthy. They've had injuries. Like, we don't know what's going to go on with Odell Beckham, whether he's coming back or not, whether he wants to play football anymore for the Rams. But, both of those teams, like, they've had injuries, but not like the 49ers have, right? So the Niners are going to get more healthy as the season goes on, while you'll see more attrition from other teams. And I think that's going to be something that's going to be big. And we talked about it on our show a couple of days ago, where you got Verrett and Jimmy Ward practicing this week, and they have a chance to play on Sunday. I mean, that's huge. You're getting 2 starting caliber, Pro Bowl caliber players back to your roster, and you're getting your RB1 Elijah Mitchell back in a few weeks. You're getting your Hall of Fame left tackle Trent Williams back in a few weeks, and it's going to be off to the races for the second half of the season. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, so I had them at 12-5 this time around. And what did you have them not making the playoffs? So would you have like about 9 wins before?
I have them at 9 wins. Yeah.
So that's a 3-game difference for you, only a 1-game difference for me. And I kind of think going into the playoffs again, whereas with Trey, there wouldn't have been a ton of pressure because you have this young quarterback and just, hey, if you're going to the playoffs with a young QB, let's get him some experience. Let's hope he has some good games. Now I think this is sort of like last year, where this is sort of feels like the last ride again, right? With Garoppolo and everything else. So I think if and when they get into the playoffs, there's a lot more pressure this year to get it done. It's going to be one of those, this is kind of the last ride with this group. A lot of pressure to win the Super Bowl. And then next year, again, you kind of go into the question marks with Lance, you would assume, unless something crazy happens, and I wouldn't take anything off the table. They end up with Aaron Rodgers or something. Seriously, I would not take anything off the table.
Or Kirk Cousins or something crazy like that, right?
Crazy, right? Wouldn't be surprised. But let's not go there yet. After the 2 off seasons we've had, let's just assume it's going to be Trey and everything's going to be good, and we'll be good to go from there. So
I hope so.
But yeah, I think it's going to be I think it's going to be an exciting season for them. And you look at the NFC West, Zain, so it's kind of weird. Everybody's 2-2, and I guess the Niners are technically in first place because they're 2-0 in the division. But I was looking at the points per game today for the division. Seahawks are at 23.8, which is 11th in the league. Cardinals are scoring 22, 14th. And then the Niners are 28th at 17.8, and the Rams are 29 at 17.5. That's got to flip, right? I mean, that's doesn't make any sense on any level.
Yeah. Seattle had that 48-point game against the Lions this past week, right? So that's going to help them. And the Niners had 2 awful offensive showings back to back, where you lost in a monsoon in Chicago, and then they weren't back to back. You sandwiched between that Seattle game, but like they lost in the monsoon in Chicago, and then a couple of weeks later they lose, just a nail biter in Denver, where the offense is doing nothing. So I don't anticipate those types of offensive performances to continue for this team. Like, it's very rare that they don't even score 10 points, or they score like only 10 or 12 points, right? So it'll flip eventually, but it takes time for a Kyle Shanahan offense to get going. We know this. It'll take time, and they start slow. So I don't expect them to hit their stride where they're scoring like 25 plus points a game until middle of the season, until they get more healthy. Right now, it's more so just like, let's tread water. I feel almost like, and somebody brought this up on Twitter, and I saw it, and I was like, maybe this is true. I feel like Kyle's making a concerted effort to keep his quarterback healthy, because if this quarterback goes down for any period of time, the season is over. That's right. It. Like, Brock Purdy is not going to lead them anywhere, despite what people want to think. And the historical record is there, right? How many undrafted free agent quarterback / 7th round quarterbacks have ever led their teams to anything? And I don't want to hear about Tom Brady, because he's the outlier in this. So you have to keep this quarterback healthy, and I think that's why you saw a lot of quick release, quick hitting stuff, because he doesn't want him to hold on to the ball, because he doesn't want him getting hit. So I think that's one of his focuses at this point.
Yeah, especially with Jimmy's history, you just can't risk it. Again, They have, Kyle knows this is a big season for him. He's got to win. He's got to get to the playoffs. And the quarterback health has been a big reason of him not doing that. So they have to kind of try to keep Jimmy upright. Did a good job of that against the Rams. I mean, offensive line kept them clean. So if they can keep doing that, they'll be in good shape. Did want to follow up too from our last show. We talked about the 3 defensive players with Hufanga, Bosa, and Ward. I did. I have to correct myself. I said on the show when I listened back to it, Bosa had 3 tackles for loss. He has 6. So he's
Mhm.
third in the league. He has 6 tackles for loss. So I want to clear that up. But I want to follow one thing on Charvarius Ward because I was looking at it more today. I really think he might be, if not the most, one of the most underrated free agents in the entire league. So when QBs are targeting him, they have a rating of 35.4. He's given up just 8 completions on 17 targets through 4 games. He's been absolutely sensational. And, we know E-Man's been really good. And I just think the difference with this defense to me, we talked about on our last show about maybe the best defense since 95. And I
Mhm.
was thinking about that today too. And I'm like, okay, well, what's the difference with this defense versus, maybe the 2011 team or 2019 team? I think it's that the secondary is so good now.
Mhm.
Before they had, you know, decent secondaries or whatever, but I don't think it's anywhere near what it is right now with Ward, Mosley, and Lenore's playing really well in the slot. Womack played well when he's had a chance to. And then the safety group where you have Hufunga, who's been a ball hawk, which makes a huge difference on a defense. And then I think he's the 3rd highest ranked safety for Pro Football Focus. And Jimmy Ward and Jason Verrett, their practice window opened this week, so they could be back this week. So I think that's the big difference is the secondary on this defense to me is, again, it feel like it's an elite unit. And then you put that with that elite front 7. I don't want to get ahead of myself because injuries happen and you never know, but I
Mhm.
just feel like we could be in for a special season defensively.
Yeah, and the Mooney Ward signing, I mentioned that during our training camp shows, and that was actually I said the exact same thing that this is going to be one of the most underrated signings in the entire NFL, and it has been through a month of the season. So the difference, like you said, Al, between this team and those early 2010 teams, those Harbaugh teams, Vic Fangio teams, is the secondary, and that's the biggest thing. Like I'd say the linebackers on those teams are probably better, but that's not to say like the linebackers now are bad. It's just you're literally comparing them to Hall of Famers, right? Like Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman, like all perennial all pros, right? So the bar set so high. But the linebacking crew in this on this team is in my opinion the best in the league, right? So it's no knock against them. But the biggest difference I think is you had Carlos Rogers and Terrell Brown at corner in
Mhm.
the Harbaugh years, right? And Carlos Rogers was like a reclamation project. Terrell Brown and Chris Culliver, right? Like who never ended up really doing anything after they left the Niners. They, they were kind of just like whatever guys in the front. The front 4 really dominated, and they were able
Mhm.
to get pressure without blitzing and all that stuff. It was a very very different time. And now you're looking at the strength of the team being, the back end of the defense in many ways. Hufanga is a superstar in the making. You've got Tashawn Gibson was on that Jaguars defense that was number 1 for a couple of years there when
Yeah.
they had Blake Bortles there and they couldn't really do anything when they went to the championship game. So he's got that experience and he's been part of an elite unit. So they're just really fun to watch, Al. I think that's the biggest thing is that like defense isn't sexy. It's not today. It's not what people want to see, but like they're so dominant and they're so much fun to watch, and it's just such a pleasure, man.
It's what I want to see. And I
Yeah.
just, like I mentioned last show, I love when the defense goes out there and you just know the other team's not going to get anything. And
Mhm.
I felt that way in 2011. I remember watching that defense. I was like, because the Niners didn't score a lot that year. Alex Smith was, Alex Smith, and maybe they're putting up 17 points, but I would just feel like that's enough. Like, we're
Mhm.
fine. It'll be 17-13, 17-10. This defense won't, isn't going to give up much more than that. And I feel that way now. I really do. And it's going to be interesting to see them against teams like the Chiefs. But going into these next 2 games, I've talked ad nauseum that we're worried about. I'm worried about the offense, but I don't think it matters in the next 2 games at all.
Mhm.
Like, that's a really cool feeling. I feel like if they get to 20, they're going to win, both of them.
Right.
Baker Mayfield and Marcus Mariota, I'm not scared of that at all
Mhm.
because you can't run on the Niners, 2 point yards per attempt. And these guys are going to try to throw against that secondary and that pass rush. I can't wait. I just want to sit back with a beer and just watch the carnage. Like, that's what I feel like right now. And
It,
it's just awesome.
especially the Panthers, right? Because they're not good at stopping the run, right? So that's what the Niners' bread and butter is. So you're going to see a lot of Jeff Wilson Jr., maybe Tevin Coleman. I mean, I'd like to see Jordan Mason more, but you're going to see a lot of handing the ball off, Jimmy turning around, handing it off, to doing what he does best, and maybe make a throw here and there. Just don't mess it up because these are two. I hate the term because it's overused and played out, but these are 2 trap games for the 49ers, and they have to understand that these are games that they have to have, because these are there's no lollipops in the NFL, right? Like any team can be any team, but this is as close as it gets.
Yeah.
And they should dominate both. And it's funny because the Atlanta game, they're talking over there about how Kyle Pitts kind of vanished from their game plan, much in the way that George Kittle has kind of vanished from the game plan here. And Akash Navarathan, who's one of the friends of the show, put out a stat on the percentages that certain tight ends are being used to block. And George Kittle was at about 10%. Tyler Higbee was 10%. And Travis Kelce was like 2.5%. And there's a whole like list of them. And, to me, even George Kittle blocking at 10% is Gesicki was the other one that was at 10%, right? So the three guys at 10% were Gesicki, Kittle, and gosh, I totally blanking here. So anyways, regardless, Kittle should not be at 10% because, his skill set is so different than the other guys that are there. And when he's not blocking, he's running clear out routes and he's not getting the ball. We talked about how Travis Kelce gets plays schemed up for him. He got targeted 8 times in the first half against Tampa Bay. And to me, that is what the Niners should be doing at this point. They should be force feeding your tight end the ball. He's your all-world tight end. He's got 21 catches in the last 8 games, right, Al? I believe that was the stat that you put out.
Yep.
Unacceptable. Like he's I would say now third best tight end in the league. Kelce is clearly the best. And then you can argue that Mark Andrews is better as well because he gets the ball. So
yeah. Yep.
So
yeah, and today's Wednesday, and Shanahan had some comments about Kittle that I want to read to you. But before I do, support for the No Huddle podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below the waist grooming. Their products are precision engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's performance package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code NOHUDDLE at manscaped.com. And if my math is correct, that's about 12 million balls. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code NOHUDDLE at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use NOHUDDLE. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. So Shanahan was asked about Kittle today. And he said, the more Kittle is out there and healthy, the more he practices, the more he can get back in his routine. I think that stuff will take care of itself in terms of him getting the ball. The plays that went to him, I thought he did a good job in the game against the Rams. Kittle affects the game in so many ways, the run and the pass. We definitely want to get him the ball more, but it's something we're not concerned about. We think it will take care of itself just as we get going. So obviously Kyle is not going to say anything other than that. But I'm kind of glad that he's at least getting asked about it. I'm kind of glad that it's at least kind of in the forefront. And I feel like Kittle is due for one of these really big games, one of these like 10 catch, 130 yard type games. And before Kittle went into this funk, that's why when people are kind of like, oh, is he regressing? Is it this? Is it that? Before Kittle went in this funk, he was on an absolute tear. And I'm trying to get the stats up right now. He had a 3-game stretch, Zain, in 2021 where he was just absolutely destroying people. And I'm going to get it as I'm talking here. But one of the reasons I want to see him get involved more again is because this offense isn't doing what it should. And you just have this star player. And when I hear things like, I don't know, well, he's double covered or this, that, the other thing, like other stars don't get covered. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like you brought up that point about Travis Kelce. They find ways to get him the ball. Mark Andrews, sometimes it feels like, was the only weapon for the Ravens. They find ways to get him the ball. So it's kind of the same thing with Kittle, where I just want to see the Niners find ways to get him the ball. You think about what he did in that game a couple years ago against the Saints, where he catches a short pass and he just carries people 40 yards down the field or whatever it was. And that's what he's capable of. So what Kittle did before this stretch where he went into this funk, 3 games, he had first game, 9 catches, 181 yards, 2 TDs. Second game, 13 catches, 151 yards, 1 TD. And then the third, 6 for 93. And then he went into that funk. And his catch percentages in those games were 75%, 86%, 100%. So they were throwing him the ball, he was catching the ball, and he was making big plays. And then this funk. So it just kind of doesn't add up to me. And hopefully, again, with Kyle saying this, maybe it's in the forefront of his mind and we're going to see Kittle more involved.
I hope so. And maybe the injury has obviously has something to do with it because timing and all that stuff and getting your sea legs and all that stuff. That I think there is something to that. But at some point, there's just no excuse for not even targeting him. And
Mhm.
is it Jimmy? Is it Kyle? Whatever it is. But I mean, like, really, it comes down to this that there's certain plays where, for example, like there was a play that we saw where Kyle Juszczyk was running down the middle of the field. You and Brian kind of mentioned that. So that's not going to be an option, right? Your fullback running down the field should not be an option, right? They're gonna like your first option should be like your tight end, Debo, Ayuk, somebody like that, right? So I'm more concerned that we're seeing plays dialed up for like Juszczyk and Charlie Warner, and we're not seeing specific plays dialed up for George Kittle. And fine, if he's double covered, that's one thing. But they're not even trying to get on the ball. They're not trying these little design, small little dump offs to him where he just turns around 5 yards and like gets those little confidence building catches. You don't see any of that. Like the whole Kelsey thing because I watched that game, and it was interesting to me because Kelsey was not running down the field. Like they were not significantly downfield passes. They were all about 10, 12 yards and under, and it was all in that box and basically around the first down marker and before it. And it's things like that will get that timing down and allow your quarterback to kind of ease into getting him the ball or allow your coach to ease into scheming up plays for him. And they're just not doing that. And to me, like Kyle said, he's not concerned. I'm like, I don't know. Like if this was a concernometer, I would probably be like, probably like a 5 or 6 at this point because it's just
Mhm.
been going back to last year, and they still haven't figured it out.
Yeah, you're talking half a season now, and I agree with you with the injury this year, but it doesn't explain last year either. So you hope it's not a trend. You hope it's not a decline. Kittle does take a lot of punishment. You hope he's not in that decline stage. I don't think he is, but we'll have to kind of wait and see how it goes. Now, these games coming up, Zane, we look at this Carolina end of this. The last time the Niners played Carolina, they beat them 51-10.
Mhm.
And then, or was it 50? I think it was 51-10. And then when they played Baker Mayfield that same year, I think it was 31-3.
Right.
So all that tells me is that the Niners are going to win this game like 83-13. That's what that tells me. It's going to be
Right.
really math. But
Math. Simple math, right?
Mayfield has been awful this year. And like I knew he was bad, but I looked at the numbers today. So his completion percentage is 54.7%. That's 31st. His yards per attempt is 6.4, 27th. Yards per game, 187, 28th. His rating is 30th at 75. And his QBR is 15.3. It's 31st. The last time he played the Niners, he was 8 for 22 for 100 yards with 2 picks and a lost fumble. His QB rating was 13.4. So you're struggling like this, and congratulations, you get the best defense in the league. And that's why I cannot. I feel like our guys like DJ Moore do. Yeah, DJ Moore is a hell of a player, and he's got 13 catches this year. Christian McCaffrey, he's putting up numbers, but it hasn't been like a game-breaking thing for him, at least not in terms of leading his team to a victory or anything like that.
Mhm.
Beyond that, you have Robbie Anderson. It's okay. He's got 12 catches for 174 yards, but nobody who really scares you. The only way there's 2 ways I can see the Niners this even being a game. One, it's a short week. You're going across the country. It's an early game. You never know, right? You start out flat. Crazier things have happened. The other is that Jimmy just has a couple stupid turnovers, or there's fluky turnovers from somebody else. That is the only way I can see the Carolina Panthers even being in this game. And I know Carolina hasn't gotten killed this year. They've been in the games that they've played. They lost 26-24 to the Browns, 19-16 to the Giants. They beat the Saints 22-14, and they lost to the Cardinals 26-16. So they're not getting annihilated, but I don't think they've run into a buzzsaw like this defense. And I just don't think they're going to be able to put enough points up to hang with the Niners.
Yeah, I agree. And also, it's actually a late game. So,
is it? It's not a 1:00 game.
No, it's a 4 o'clock Eastern start time. So it's a 1 o'clock Pacific. Yeah.
Look at that. Okay, so I'm a moron. So it is a late game. So it's not an early game. It is 4 o'clock Eastern. So it is across the country. It is a short week, but it's a late game. Okay. I
Yeah.
did not even know that.
Get the body clock right. So I think that and the funny thing is, like, I mean, you mentioned what all the things I wanted to talk about with their offense, right? Like, they're not getting anything outside of Christian McCaffrey. They don't really have great receivers. Their defense isn't very good. Matt Rule is basically like a dead coach walking at this point. Like, they're
Oh, yeah.
already talking about getting rid of him. So I think that you'll probably see a coaching change in Carolina. Sam Darnold had won that job, right? Like, that's basically what it was. It was going to be Sam Darnold's job. He got hurt, and Baker Mayfield ended up starting by default. That's kind of what it was. And I feel like the whole thing behind Baker Mayfield was that he had an elite group of receivers in Cleveland when he played there, and elite skill players, and he was able to make it work up to a certain extent, but it was only like a small flash in the pan. And I think that, because of that, that kind of showed everybody that, well, he's probably not as good as people thought he was.
Mhm.
There's, I don't even remember, like, around the time that they played that game, when Baker Mayfield came here, they played that primetime game. There's a lot of, like, hype behind him, and like, so much Baker disrespect and things like that. And the Niners absolutely just destroyed them, and that was kind of it. Like, you just never really heard from him again, right? And I kind of expect the same thing to happen now. Like, it's, Bosa has a chip on his shoulder, right? Because of the whole college thing of flag
Right.
football. He's still thinking about that. So it'll be interesting to see if he gets to him, what he does. But there's just the Niners. I criticize Kyle Shanahan a fair bit for when he messes up, but I will say this, that it's the first time since Jim Harbaugh where I've consistently felt that they can be in every game. Like, they have a chance to win every game. Aside from maybe like that Kansas City game, even I still think they have a chance. But, like, you walk into this and you're like, all right, like, this is a win. This should be a win. You have a chance here to win. Like, it's not like, oh, well, they're going to get blown out like when they were bad or when they had bad personnel. So that being said, these are games that they should win. I think that they should beat Carolina pretty handily. I don't think that I think that he's realizing that, like, okay, well, I don't have to do stupid stuff. Just play the playbook, and don't make any idiotic throws, and they win the game. So.
In Jimmy so far this season, and I know there's definitely been some throws that, maybe were a little bit dicey, and I know it's a small sample size, but his interception percentage is currently at 1.3%.
Mhm.
That is by far, if it stays consistent to that, the best he's had in his Niners career. He's at 2.8% for his 49ers career, and he's never been lower than 2.7% in a season. And the turnovers are generally what kill him. Again, even when you have Jimmy's playing well, sometimes he'll be 13 out of 16 and he's cruising, and the score is maybe 13-3, and then he throws a pick and all of a sudden it's 13-6 or 13-10. You see that. If he can avoid that, yeah, like you said, they're going to be really, 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 really tough to beat. And I think in this game, I still don't know that the offense gets going yet. I don't feel like they're there, but I think Kittle's going to get more involved for sure this week, which is a good thing. Right now, in terms of their targets, Deebo Samuel has 28, Ayuk has 23, Juwan Jennings has 15, and then Kittle in his 2 games has 9. So again, you want to see Kittle. So I'd like to see him get 6-7 targets a game. Really try to get him involved, really try to get him in space, get some big plays, have him knocking over some people, get things going. I'm looking for a big game from him this week. And I'm looking to get that running game going a little bit more consistently. I do like what Jeff Wilson's done. He's had some big runs. I'm a Jeff Wilson guy. I like to see a little bit more. There's been some big runs, and then it's been tough sledding for a while. I'd like to see some consistent runs today and get them going and really just control the football, get Kittle involved. I don't think they're going to put up 30 plus points, but I think they can be safely in the 20s, and I don't think Carolina's going to get more than 13. So I think even if there is a little bit of across the country lag for them, I think the Niners are going to win this game easily.
I think so too. I think it'll be one of those games where it's like a short game because their defense, Al. The funny thing is that if you look at the statistics from the Rams game and the time possession, the Rams possessed the ball like a significantly longer time than the 49ers did. And that to me is after the week where Denver significantly possessed the ball more than the Niners did in that game as well. So I think that, like, those things, they start to chip away at your defense and the health of your defense. So I think that this is going to be one of those games where they try to even that out, get the defense some rest, limit their opportunities, and really control the clock, because they will be able to run the football against Carolina. Like, they're just a terrible run defense. So assuming that everybody stays healthy and the offensive line, which has been fantastic. Aaron Banks, by the way, he has been really like just an absolute revelation through 4 games.
Yeah.
He's been fantastic. No penalties, no sacks given up. He's only given up 6 pressures throughout the first 4 games. So it's been really nice to see that, because that was a big question mark with Lincoln Tomlinson left and that position needed to be filled. We were kind of questioning, like, is he going to be able to do it? Because last year he struggled. So it's been a really pleasant surprise to see that there. And I think that once Trent Williams comes back, that left side of the line will be a lot more solidified. Brendel seems to be settling in at center now, and there's a little bit of flux at right guard because they don't know whether Burford is going to be able to take over for Brunskill or not full time, and they were kind of like shuttling them in and out of the game yesterday, this past week. But really, again, I feel like they're going to be able to dominate the run game, and I don't care, honestly. If Kittle's staying in and blocking and they're winning games, they're dominating teams, it's not a big deal. But eventually, like that's something that they'll have to remedy.
Yeah, I
So
think
yeah,
he'll catch up to him eventually. Yeah.
yeah.
You mentioned Banks. Yeah, he has. I'm me. I always worry about everything. So you get a guy coming in there that's unproven, but he's been really good. And looking back at that 2021 draft, now Lance is a big TBD. We don't know. Great hopes for him. Great talent. We just don't know yet. Aaron Banks looks good now in that for that second round pick. If he's a stalwart at guard, that was a good pick. The third round is Trey Sermon and Ambry Thomas. But then you look at what they did in the later rounds, where this is where the Lynch and Peters and Kyle Shannon, this is where they flourished. So Jalen Moore is a 5th round pick, and he's a swing lineman, right? Backup lineman for a 5th round. Nothing wrong with that. But then the next 3 picks, Lenore, Hufanga, Eli Mitchell. In the 5th round, pick 172 was Lenore, pick 180 was Hufanga, and then the 6th round was Eli Mitchell. That's phenomenal for the 5th and the 6th round. Phenomenal. And then you look at other guys they've gotten it late. Obviously, Kittle, DJ Jones. I'm sure I'm forgetting a million people. They've done so well in the back of that draft, and that's where we get on this team, and it's what we do, right? Where we do content, we do a show. We're gonna talk about the hits and misses, but overall, when you look at a roster that's this good. Yeah, the quarterback stuff, they absolutely have to figure that out. But overall, if you miss on a Solomon Thomas or a Reuben Foster, you're making it up later in the draft. You're getting a Fred Warner in the 3rd round. You're getting a Hufanga in the 6th round. You're getting a George Kittle in the 5th. They're making it up. It doesn't matter where you get these players, I guess, as long as you get them, right? So I thought that was pretty interesting today. I saw it somewhere. Someone had posted the 2021 draft, and I was like, oh, that's pretty damn good, because we weren't too sure about that this time last year or even this offseason. And now it's like, wow, looks good.
Yeah, and there's so much credit that needs to go to John Lynch, Adam Peters, and obviously Kyle as well. It's his scheme. And he puts these guys to work and finds fits for them. But that's how championship teams are built, right? Like if you remember those Seattle teams that were really good, Legion of Boom, where Sherman played, that's how they were built, right? Earl Thomas was the 1st rounder, but they were all late round / undrafted free agent picks in the secondary, and they were able to make it work. And it's good for the championship window, because those guys are those guys come on rookie contracts, and right away they're contributing, and that allows you the flexibility to be able to improve your teams other ways. Yep. And I think that's where the frustration of Trey getting hurt was that another year of the rookie contract, and they can't really take advantage of it. But that being said, this offsets it a little bit when you have all the guys that you mentioned playing on rookie contracts and being significant contributors. I think they should just trade all their 1st round picks and just get impact players, and then just trade them back for 5th round picks, and that's it, right? That's all you need.
Just pick in the 5th and 6th round. That's all you got to do.
That's it. It's very simple, right? That's all you need. You
can get a ton of them if you trade your 1st and your 2nd, right? Just get
right.
30, 50 round picks, and then you got all George Kittles and Hufangas, and no, it's amazing. It's amazing what they've done, and they've had some good 1st rounders too. I mean, Nick Bosa, obviously, franchise changer type pick. McGlinchey has been a 5-year starter. I don't know if he'll be past this year, but that's a solid pick. Things like that. They've overall done really well, and you have this kind of roster. It's easy to nitpick, but overall they've done really, really well. It's fun to see. So, all right, Zain, do you have a score prediction for this game?
So I'm going to say the Niners will get to 24 points. It'll be like a 24-13 type of game. I don't see unless the Niners make some stupid mistakes. But also, I'm speaking of stupid mistakes. We didn't touch on this at all in either show, but I'm kind of concerned about Ray McLeod and his ball security.
Yes, me too.
I'm concerned about that, because there's been a couple times where he had a good return last game. Like for this is the first time that he kind of was able to break one a little bit and take it down to midfield. But I'm concerned about that. I don't know. Are you as concerned as I am about that?
I am, because that was the thing with him that because I didn't see a lot of him playing in Pittsburgh, but you read up on guys or whatever. The thing with him is like, because I'm like, oh, this guy's electric. I really would like to see what Kyle would do with him, but they're like, yeah, he has ball security problems. And again, with as a 49ers fan, you have PTSD.
Yeah.
Kyle Williams and stuff like that, and like
Yeah.
it was, and this is the stuff that worries me. That Rams game when he fumbled the ball, okay, the Niners got it back, not a big deal. But what if that happens and they don't get it back? Those are the things that could take a winnable game when you're not scoring a ton of points and turn it into a loss. And yeah, he's kind of starting to scare me too. It's funny that you said that, because I actually wrote it down in my notes and I totally forgot to talk about it, because he's definitely worrying me a little bit. We'll have to see how the season goes on, but you have to worry in a big spot. Is he going to try to break one and the ball's going to pop, and before you know it, bad things happen.
Yeah. So if they don't do something like that, if they don't have like a silly, foolish turnover or a couple turnovers like that, I don't think that this should be any issue for them. As long as everybody stays healthy, and as long as Jamie doesn't turn it over, as long as they don't have any crazy turnovers, there are always defense breakdowns that happen. That's fine. But like if you're up by a couple scores, it's not as big of a deal. As long as Kyle's not up by 10 points, it's him and 10 points, dude. That's whatever it is with 10 points. Make it 9 or 11 or 12. Just don't make it 10 points in the fourth quarter, right? We'll be good then.
How about 28 points? How about a blowout for once? Can it be easy one time? Just please.
Let's do it.
Let's enjoy it. Let's enjoy it. So, all right. And Zain, you're set to open the show, because every time you do, right, when it's your turn to open, it's usually a win. So we're just going to already pencil it in for you to open the next show, and we'll be good to go. So
excellent. Hey, and congratulations, Aaron Judge, man. Before we get out of here, I just want to, baseball playoffs are coming up, and it's that rare time of year where if you're a sports fan, this is the best time of year, because all four major sports are all playing at this time now, right? You've got preseason in both hockey and basketball. You've got playoffs in baseball. You've got NFL season in the thick of it now. It's a really fun time of year if you're a sports fan.
Yeah, I got my Rangers banner. If you're watching on YouTube behind me, I'm a big New York Rangers hockey fan. I like the Lakers, and you hate LeBron. So the LeBron thing we'll get irrationally mad at LeBron from the second that tips off, which I always love. Yeah. And even though it's been, I'm not a LeBron guy either, so it's been a little rough for him on the Lakers with him on the Lakers. But yeah, it's awesome, man. You got all four major sports going. If you want to count college football, it's 5 different things to watch. It's an awesome time of year. Fall is happening. It's good stuff, man. It's a fun time to be a sports fan, and I don't want to do anything but sit on my couch and drink beer and watch sports. That's all I want to do.
Exactly. I mean, it was fun. You say it's fall right now. It's funny. Today it was like 90 degrees here in the Bay Area. So
not here.
Oh, man, it was awfully hot today over here. But that's great, because that's what we pay for here in California. Exorbitant real estate prices for what? So that's what we pay for. Also, I want to get your thoughts on the home run record real quick. So Aaron Judge gets 62 last night. Roger Maris Jr. is like, he's the new home run king.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
I just think the steroid era happened. So, and I think so you can't discount it. And there's such a double standard, because people, and I do, when people have their opinions on it, steroids does not help you hit a baseball, but steroids turns a ball that's 10 feet in front of the wall over the wall. You're just bigger and stronger. Judge hit 62 because he's bigger and stronger than everybody else. That's part of the reason why he did it, but it happened. So 73 is the record. In baseball, there's such a double standard, and so many people on their soapboxes. Bonds isn't getting in the Hall of Fame, and Clevens isn't getting in, but David Ortiz is in, and you put Bud Selig, who presided over all of it, and let it happen, in the Hall of Fame. So when you're going to do things like that, like don't preach to me about, I have trouble with people on their soapbox when that sort of thing has happened. So it's a double standard. There's definitely guys in the Hall of Fame who have done roids. Definitely, it was rampant in that era. So it happened. As a Yankee fan, I love that he hit the 62. It was special for a Yankee fan. I could see why somebody in Milwaukee may not give a shit, but for me, I thought it was great. And, is it the real record? I think it depends on, I think people are going to have different opinions on that. And I know nobody wants that, right? Everybody's got to attack people for their opinions, but I think the steroid era happened. So you have to recognize those numbers, but if people feel differently, that's their opinion, that's part of, their interpretation of it. So I don't have an issue with people think either way. I think they're entitled to that opinion. Just don't tell other people how to think, I guess.
Yeah, and remember, pitchers were juicing too during that era.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah,
So
everybody was doing it.
everybody was doing it. Pitchers juicing, the hitters are juicing, and I'll be honest, man, that was a lot of fun to watch. Like as a kid growing up, like you see these like giant like bodybuilders like just jacking 500-foot bombs. It was kind of cool, right? Like it was like wow, we didn't know, nobody suspected. But when Jose Canseco came out with that book, like we were like, that what kind of like raised people's ears, right? Raise the alarm, and that at that point people started to suspect it. But when we didn't know about it, it was actually really fun to watch. Like you remember that summer in '98 when Sosa, McGuire was my favorite player growing up, right? So for me, it was awesome to see that, right? It was fantastic. And baseball was like quote unquote back after that, after the strike years. So I think that, like there's been a lot of course correction for baseball, but this has been a really fun story. And I think that the wild card format, they got it right. 3 games for the wild card, they got it right. So I think they're taking a lot of steps in the right direction to kind of become relevant again. So it's nice to see.
Yeah. I hope so, because I used to be a huge baseball fan, and to be honest with you, I have a hard time getting into things now. I mean, I'm still a big Yankee fan, but I used to live and die with the Yankees, and now I'm just kind of, I don't know, it just hasn't been as exciting to me lately. I don't know if it's because of the way the game's played. Well, I think it is because of the way the game's played. Guys striking out 200 times, and you look back in the day, Don Mattingly striking out 30 times, Tony Gwynn striking out 20 times. It was just a different game. So, but we'll see. Hopefully, we'll start to come back, but. Yeah, in terms of that record, it's Bonds' record because it happened. You can't say it didn't happen. It did. That was the era. Babe Ruth was hitting against guys probably throwing 75 miles an hour. Like it's like
that, and there were like African American people weren't allowed to play when Babe Ruth was, Babe Ruth was playing. Like until Jackie Robinson came and broke the color barrier, like they were not allowed to play. So it's like how can you count that when there's no guarantee that Babe Ruth was playing against the best athletes in the world, right?
Probably no way he was. Yep.
So
100%. So, but yeah, we'll save the rest for our baseball podcast that we'll do. So.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, we got to get out of here. For Zain, this is Al.
Peace.